Hey everybody, this is Henry here, and welcome to the first ever episode of our brand new series, One Chuff at a Time. I'm one of your hosts, Crimson2091, aka Henry, and I'm co-hosting this podcast with two of my good friends, the first being Master of the Lemons,
aka Lemmy. How's it going, folks?
and my other friend, the infamous Rondog248.
Okay.
You're
really had
infamous.
really had to set me up as the villain.
Well, because I wanted to do this thing where I've been listening to a lot of old baited episodes, and I like how Colossal's crazy introduces Keem as the infamous DJ Killer Keemstar, and I just wanted an excuse to do that, but we don't have to do that every time.
In the first 10, 20 seconds of the show's existence, it's already the drama alert reference.
We've already.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm not gonna lie. This is awesome. I'm excited.
Yeah.
What a way to start.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, basically the synopsis of this podcast is basically talking about. So obviously, all three of us are content creators in the Thomas fandom in one way or another, and we just wanted to come together and make a podcast. We have calls like this like every other day, it seems like, these days.
Yeah, we just shoot the shit a lot.
It's
it's
good.
kind of nice to just kind of, I don't know, share that dynamic. Because I feel like what makes a good podcast is just like bouncing off of each other really well. And we already do. So we're just we're doing that, but on recording. And the kind of the topics are pretty broad. Like, we can talk about pretty much everything, but the focus is mainly on content creation and, what inspires us, how we go about making videos or models or whatever we do. Because we all do kind of a different part of, we all experience the hobby in a different way. So I think we kind of touch different areas of the fandom in a really interesting way. I do mainly audio productions these days and models. I mean, Henry, you've got your all your Wooden Railway stuff. You've got your your series, both of your series. You got and Ronnie, you got all your HO stuff at this point. That's kind of what you're known for.
Yeah.
So, and you've also done a lot of music. So we really we touch kind of a lot of different areas of the fandom.
Yeah. We're all different parts of the same pizza pie.
Exactly. And
Sliced into exactly three.
yeah, I was
slices.
about to say, I don't think that's been done a whole lot in the world. I mean, I could be wrong.
The world.
Because usually you want to cut it. I mean, bare minimum's 4, but usually people do 8. But yeah,
I mean,
I don't
3
know.
All right. You're
Three's daring.
You're really
Yeah.
getting preachy about this pizza thing. I was just trying to make a little.
Yeah, no, okay, all right. Let's cut to the chase. Basically, we have a list of topics we want to go through each episode. We're going to focus on one generalized topic each episode, and today the episode or the topic that we're going to focus on today is inspirations, stuff that has inspirated us as content creators, from when we were young and we're into Thomas as kids to today when we're making YouTube videos or music, or in Lemmy's case, stuff out of cardboard. I feel like he could make a functioning gun out of cardboard if he wanted to.
Well, I'm not gonna say yes or no to that on the air.
Have you?
Yeah.
Can you text the chat later if you've tried?
I could text the chat now.
All right. I want to know if you've tried,
Okay.
because I know I've tried before.
I'll take a look at it a bit later.
For no reason. No reason
Yeah.
to try it, but I've tried. I'm not.
Why is there? Okay, never mind. I'm not gonna say it. I was about to give it away, but because I was kind of confused by the question mark at the end. But all right. Anyway, so yeah, Who wants to go first?
I mean,
you go first.
I don't know.
Lemmy.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've got a lot of anecdotes. I mean, because that's the thing is I think that this episode will be mostly just talking about just really nostalgic things that inspired us. I mean, when I think back to what my inspirations are, I grew up with the complete Thomas the Tank Engine collection, which is kind of a funny name for it because it's really just the Railway series, just the first 26
Right.
books.
Yep.
And so, it's like I had the luxury of growing up with all of the Reverend stuff. and it was literally my bedtime book. Like, my parents would read me, like, the Reverend Audrey's stories, you know, before I went to bed every night. And I was always more focused on the pictures than I was the words. Like, somehow I got really far into my life before knowing that D7101's name was Bear. Like, they say that. Like, they say that they started calling him Bear in Enterprising Engines. I must have been read that story so many times, but all I remember was the illustration. Like, I never actually, like, internalized the text. But the point is, like, I grew up with that, but I also grew up, like, when I entered the world was right when season 5 was, like, in full swing, like, and season 6 was coming out, and it was in that weird gap where, like, there was kind of, I feel like there was a big gap between season 5 and season 6. So, you know, I got to experience the first 5 seasons, and I remember a time where that was all there was of Thomas, like, that, like, the classic stuff. That's what I started with.
That's scary.
Yeah, 1 to 5. Yeah, well, it's scary, but it's also, like, kind of made me who I am, right?
Yeah.
And I love season 6 and 7 because they, like, you know, those are like my seasons, right? Those are the ones I got to see come out. Like, I, you know, experienced them in real time. But the thing is, seasons 1 to 5, they predated me, you know? So that was the world I was born into. I remember sticker books with the characters and like, the trading cards that they made and all that stuff. Like, that was all... I think what's striking to me is it was all Railway series and TV series mixed together. Like, that was an era where all the merchandise had both. So I didn't really think of the show and books separately. I thought of it all as one big hodgepodge world. So, you know, I think that makes me see it a bit differently from someone who maybe didn't grow up with the complete collection. Because to me, like, Mike, Rex, and Bert were always canon in the same way that, like, Derek and, like, Old Slow Coach were, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. My cousin, or my cousins, had more, like, Thomas stuff, Wooden Railway stuff than I did. And they had Mike. And, of course, I didn't know who the heck Mike was as a kid. But I pointed out, I was like, that's a cool-looking character. And I didn't know who it was. And, like, my cousin, like, that was his favorite train that he had. And he always had it on a metaphorical pedestal. Like, that was the train he always used when we played trains and stuff like that. And then later on, like, I got the, I actually think, like, they had the complete collection, but it's just, I mean, we didn't read it a whole lot, or, you know, I did, because I loved Thomas Everything, but then when I got older, I just really looked at the pictures, but as I got older, a little bit older, I started actually reading the stories. I'm like, oh, these are really tiny engines, smaller than narrow gauge engines. I'm like, that's pretty cool. But and I get that. Same with Coldy, and Wilbert for the longest time. I got Wilbert before I knew who he was in a Trust Thomas DVD, and of course he was a Christopher Audrey character, so I didn't have those books. And I didn't know where to access them. So, you know, I just had made my own headcanon for Wilbert when I was a child.
Yeah, like, Christopher's books were the hardest thing to get a hold of.
They still are. They're still,
they still are, you're right. But at least now as an adult, I'm like, okay, I understand why, and I understand they're in the UK, and you gotta go on UK eBay, and like I know how. But, like, as a kid, it was just, like, baffling to me. I had no idea. I was just like, this is just another world.
I know now, Sidekick Jason, like, a few years ago on Twitter, he posted the PDF.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah, no, that's really nice.
I use that all the time. Yeah. You know, I mean, did you guys see that that video? It was like 150 Thomas characters in like 30 seconds or something.
Yeah, that was a classic.
Yeah, it was. Like, that was really inspiring. I would watch that video and pause, and I don't think you could change, like, the speed of YouTube videos back then. So you had to just pause, you know, at the perfect moment so that you could, like, you know, and some of them were just random background diesels in the Spong illustrations. Others were really important, and you didn't know which ones were which.
I think the thumbnail for that video was Iron Duke, and I was like, who the heck is that?
Yeah.
Like a big old, like, wooden engine with a mustache. Like,
yeah, I know, yeah. I was like, who the hell is that? And it's like, he only appears very briefly in Thomas and the Great Railway Show, but, like, I didn't know, right? Like, it's the same as, like, 16 or Wilbert. It's like, it could be, you had no idea because you didn't know the context. So it was this really exciting time as a kid where it's like, I was familiar with the show, but then there was this whole other world where it's like there's all these characters that I didn't even know existed. And I really wanted to get my hands on those books and know where they were from. And some characters were from annual stories and from magazines, and you didn't really know which ones were which. So, like, I mean, I understand it all now, and I know all the lore, and part of me wishes I could go back to that time where like there was all this new stuff to discover, and it was still so exciting.
Yeah, no, I feel that way about like Thomas behind the scenes in general, because I remember when I was really young, going on SIF and looking at how they made like the brass trees for Tatmer, and I was like, whoa, that is cool. And now it's like, oh, I know all this crap about how they did all these things, and it's cool, but the magic of it, of like not knowing how they did it, is gone.
Yeah, it's true, right? I mean, you peek behind the curtain. Like, did you ever look at the Magic Railroad mini site with like, all the like? That was really cool.
It had the storyboards.
The storyboards.
Yeah.
There was like, they talked about how they got the viaduct to collapse, and the thing is, like, I mean, people take it for granted now. We've got thousands of behind the scenes pictures. Hell, we got hundreds from Tugs, let alone the thousands from Thomas. It's insane what we have now. And a lot of people worked long and hard to make all that stuff public, and I'm not discrediting that because a lot of hard work went into making that all happen and restoring it. But back when I was much younger, when I was like 7 or 8, it was all on SIF. Like the pretty much the only behind the scenes stuff we had was on SIF.
The ones that I saw, or sorry, are you going?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, no, that's one thing we're trying to do on this podcast. I mean, we didn't really talk about it behind the scenes, but, I think we'll do pretty good at not interrupting each other. I accidentally interrupted Lemmy. I apologize. But anyway, back on the topic.
For now, it's okay.
The behind the scenes stuff I saw were like slideshows on YouTube. Just like there was like this model railroading magazine, and it talked about like in the 1984 issue.
Yeah, like the picture of Thomas with like his like his
that one was on SIF too, I think.
I think a lot of those compilation videos came from SIF, but you're right, Henry. I saw a lot of those on YouTube first. Like, that is like
I saw it on YouTube first, then I found out about SIF, and I was looking at that stuff, and there was, there was just a lot of stuff on SIF, that mainly behind the scenes that I paid attention to.
You know where else all that stuff was? Real Lives with Thomas website.
Oh yeah, Real Lives with Thomas.
That website is still one of my favorites. I still love that
site
website.
had. I mean, I don't recall a lot of like.
I remember that. It
had
like
the
illustrations,
the
illustrations. Like, it had, like, the pictures of the engine's basis, but then people, like, colored over them to, like,
with the smiley faces on the front. And,
I love that website to death.
The really old-fashioned Photoshop where it's, like, it's a blue filter over, like, the paint instead of, like, replacing the color. It's, like, just, like a blue kind of transparent screen over everything to make it look blue. Like, what's crazy is now I realize in hindsight, all the information on that site, it was basically Sodor's People, History, and Railways turned into a website. Like, a lot of that is verbatim what is in the Railway Series lore book. But I didn't realize that at the time. Like, I read a lot of that stuff and just, internalized it. And I mean, like, hell, we don't even... I mean, you look at the illustrations of Thomas, you can tell he's an E2 just because of the weird shape of the tanks, but, like... People, History, and Railways like outright says it, and it says James is a class 28, and it says all these other things. And so long before I ever read People, History, and Railways, which is the book that actually confirmed all that stuff, I read Real Lives. And Real Lives of Thomas the Tank Engine, that is why I think that Thomas looks like an E2. It's why I think Edward's a K2 and Gordon's an A1, and all this stuff that is like, I mean, I know like...
It really puts it into perspective.
Yeah, no, it does, because for me, that stuff is really fundamental. And I know, like, if you're more TV series oriented, it doesn't matter as much. Like, you're more focused on how the engines look in the show. But for me, like, I'm a big Railway Series guy, and Real Lives of Thomas the Tank Engine is where I first learned, like, what makes the Railway Series different from the show. Mm-hmm. And I just ate it all up. It was so cool to me, and it still is.
Going back to inspirations a little bit, and you guys were talking about like Henry was talking about how his cousin had Mike. My cousin had Mike too, and I remember like looking up like Mike, like who is Mike? And back then, I mean, you could tell kids were inspired just by there being a character they had never seen before. Like there's
exactly
what's the wooden video? James, Mike, and the Boulder. Like that was one of the first ones. I was like, oh, so this is like Mike. He's like just James, but different.
That was like I think that was Diamond Thomas.
That was Diamond Thomas. Yeah, that
was either Diamond Thomas or Waylanator. It was one of those two.
Did you guys ever see 16's Disaster?
Yes,
like
we've had many a discussion about 16's Disaster. Lemmy.
Yeah,
is that Arse Over Cab or is that a different one?
No, that's but Arse Over Cab is great too. But yeah, like 16's Disaster. For those who don't know. It was basically like it was just like a blue Tommy track stretched across like a kitchen counter gap, and then Wilbert, who was like an attempt to make like a Tommy Wilbert custom based on someone else's custom.
I know
he's like, he tells Ertl 16, he's like, don't go across that gap, it's dangerous. 16's like, I can do whatever I want. And then he goes over the gap, and the track breaks, and he falls to the kitchen floor.
I remember something very similar to that. I forget who made it, but it was like Tommy track with an Ertl Wilbert and an Ertl 16, and there's a tunnel, and I vividly remember. Like the 16, he's like, ooh, dark tunnel. And he turns to Wilbur. He's like, do you dare me to go in it? And he's like, sure. And then he goes in, and then you just hear a yelling noise, and Wilbur's like, 16? Are you okay? Are you okay? It gets closer, and he's like, oh my God, he's dead!
I think
that is dramatic.
That's like a series at this point. Like that's like a like an ongoing like
16 being like ambitious and like not scared of anything, and Wilbur like just sitting back. And,
ambitious is such a charitable way to put that.
I know.
It's kind of messed up.
I don't.
It's kind of messed up. They just kill him off instantly. That's crazy.
Yeah. That's nuts.
That's good though. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Because back then, imagine how bold that was. Like back in the day,
dude. I mean, this is. I'm like, I know that's half a joke, but like. Genuinely think people were so much bolder back then, you know? Like these days, like I feel like most content is a lot safer. Like it follows a template more or less. But like it used to be, you had like Miss Oliver and Blossom and like Train Lover 476 doing like their like his wacky like Tommy videos, you know, where the engines like had the MS Paint hands and like parodied all this other content. It was wild. It was like a trip watching that. And I feel like
those users like paved the way. Those were some, not like the very first Thomas users, but I mean those were some of the first like well-known ones. Those were the ones that I watched back in like 2007, 2008. You know, that kind of set a template for that era of YouTube, Thomas YouTube. And then, you know, obviously it progresses, it changes like maybe not all the time, but it, you know, now we kind of got to this more like classic series-esque, like, well, not everybody, but you know,
but it is like
there's just
it
more.
Is certainly common. Like, the thing is, like visually, I feel like if you were to put like all videos in the community at like a bar, it was a lot lower back then, and now it's like pretty much every video you see is really visually impressive. But also, I feel like they take fewer risks, right? So you see fewer videos that do something insane like that, you know, that just are willing to break the rules entirely. I think people are in general more focused on canon these days and more focused on making things visually accurate to the show. And there are definitely people that break that mold. But like, you know, in general, I feel like things are more standardized these days. And part of that might just be the fact that more people can make content now because, you know, of trains and because people have access to tools they didn't have before. So it might not be that that necessarily content is more homogenous these days. It might just be that a lot of people who really wanted to recreate the show back in the day couldn't because they didn't have the tools. And now people who just want to go and like, I want to do more season 5, they could do that now. Like before they just didn't have the tools, you know?
And to be fair, like even under the people that are kind of all doing the same sort of thing, like under that umbrella, there are still people that are constantly setting that standard higher and higher.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know what I'm saying? And
No,
that's
true.
Yeah.
That's what I always like to see in content. And what inspires me a lot is like seeing the bar always set like constantly higher and higher. Like this is how close we can get to something like this, or this is how far away we can get from something. This is how unique we can make it.
That's the thing. Now I've pretty much had 3 series now. Like, I have Adventures on Sodor, which is my normal Thomas series, Rails of the West, which is like my American series, mainly talk about the Union Pacific, and then like Train Yard Antics, which I made like a video called Rocks on the Track, and now I just finished the script for the second episode next or a couple days ago, and that's kind of more like a comedic, funny episode or like series.
And that lets you explore a lot of different kind of like.
And
themes.
that's the thing. Like, and there were a couple times, I don't want to go further into it because like that's a topic for another episode. But in a way, I feel like I kind of fall into like different categories all at the same time in a way. But yeah. Enough talking about myself.
No, but that is relevant, right? Because it's like you kind of got to talk about where your inspirations have led in order to like really appreciate why they matter. And it's like, for me, right, a lot of what's inspired me the most, looking back, like Sodor, The Dark Times, like that was probably the most pivotal thing I ever watched. In terms of Thomas content, there was a lot of stuff like Wild Nor'Wester, huge inspiration also.
Yeah.
But like, and a lot of other people too, like Cactus 1907-06. He was not afraid to pull punches. Like his stories were wild, like long stories that had several parts and it invoked like witchcraft and sci-fi fantasy elements. Like it was just insane. Like he was willing to tell a story about literally everything. And he involved all the characters, like, his stuff was just insane. And I I think some people, and I think some people definitely laugh at it, and I get why, because it's a little wild. But the thing is, like, looking at just the concepts and the stories that he told, I felt like they're very freeing. Like, you genuinely do not know what's going to happen in his series. And, there's a lot of other people I could name, but like Sodor the Dark Times, which is really just Sodor Dark Times. There's no the, but like that sounds wrong. Like I've always thought it was Sodor the Dark Times. Like that was the first really serious Thomas thing I ever watched was Stakes. That was shot like cinematically and felt just really like dark and I thought Alfred was such a cool villain. And so that really kind of changed the way that I saw writing and Thomas and made me want to tell different kinds of stories. And then for a few years after that, and this is pre-YouTube, but this was back when I was doing home videos just on my video camera. I did a lot of really edgy, dark, like videos that do not age well and were very cringy. But eventually my inspiration from Sodor the Dark Times culminated into like me telling darker, kind of grimmer, more dramatic stories, which is kind of a hallmark of what I do now. So, that's where it started,
It's crazy too. Sodor the Dark Times still holds up so well.
Oh yeah.
For as old as it is, I don't think it'll ever drop in value or quality as the years go.
No, exactly. And it's like, you look at it visually and you're like, okay, well the models aren't the most like, they're not anywhere near what they can do in trains today, but at the same time, like it was crazy because like that's kind of one of the first times that any of those models were seen like in the fandom. Like it was basically, that's why like I think part of what made Alfred such a great character like that was so exciting is that he was designed with the same tools at the same time as all the main cast for that. So he didn't stick out like a sore thumb. He looked like he belonged there. And I think that was like a really like that helped to sell him as a character that was part of that world.
Yeah.
And that series just kind of kickstarted a new era of trains, I feel like, because then those models became public and for a while the SI3D models were like they were the hallmark for the community. So and they evolved into what we got today. So, it was really something. So visually, I think it's very consistent and beautiful visually. It's simple, compared to what we have today, but I think still very well executed. Like, it doesn't stick out as clumsy or kind of poorly rendered at all. It's just like simple, and I think simple doesn't mean bad, right? Like it's low poly. It's got. I mean, there's a reason we still got people who are making new trains models in the style of those older 2009, 2012 models. Like that's still a genre, and I love that.
There's this guy. I think his name's Clownium or something like that. He he makes videos in the trains videos in the style of like 2009 and asking stuff like that, and and I enjoy them. They're good, solid videos, just in like the 2009 style.
No, that's the thing. I'm so nostalgic for that style. Did you guys ever see like JH5000's?
Yeah, he made his own Railway Series models. Yes.
Yeah.
That guy was the goat.
I loved that.
That guy was
I wanted those models so bad, and now people just make like replicas of them. Like, it's crazy.
There was a guy I used to watch a lot that was a very big inspiration for me, and it was Thomas and Friends, but the S in Friends with a Z. Oh. And there was like this little like black tank engine, and he like gets in an accident. He tries to kill another one. It's like Thomas is telling a story to a bird. This is so hard to explain. It sounds like I'm just making shit up, but like the intro was like a rap beat version of the Thomas theme. But the models were all unique. Like he made his own main cast, and they were very like proportionally stylized. It was really cool.
Oh, I need to look this up because I either have never seen it or you're unlocking like a deep memory. Like
it's shoot. There was another guy there was a lot of my biggest inspirations growing up were trains. Just because I liked the freedom of what you could do with it and like the changeable faces. Like, because nowadays, like I can 3D print a face. Like, I need an expression for this, and I'll just print one. But back in the day when you're doing like Tomy or Wooden, like you're a child, you're not allowed to have sharp objects, so you're just sitting there and you're like, well, I guess I'm going to pretend. I'll just imagine that he's angry.
You could have snuck some in.
I could have. That's true.
Yeah, that is something that always bothered me, is like not being able to change the expressions on the characters, which is why like when I started I've been making videos technically since like 2011, but like 2016 was really when I started making Thomas videos for the community.
You did the paper face masks.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say, is that that's why I did that, is because I wanted to have that range of movement, because it always bothered me that if you edited the faces, it's like, well, you still like the second the engine starts moving, they're smiley. Yeah. I get that. So that's why I did the paper faces.
That's the thing. Like, I mean, in the 10.5 years, or almost 11 years that I've been making videos, I've never done facial expressions. There is always stuff that like I want to try and improve on. It's just something I've never really done. And a lot of other Wooden Railway guys kind of just do this too, where it's kind of the part of the content where you kind of use your imagination, where you're using and there. I mean, obviously there's special variants of certain Wooden Railway engines, like the Tired Expression Percy, Tired Thomas,
or like the Busy Bee James, if you look at him from the front.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I've been using those. I mean, there was a point where I didn't even use those, even though I had them. But, once I started to, learn to like them, and I've been using them, like, for certain shots. Like, I mean, whenever there's a point where Percy's, like, upset or something, like, I love that. I love that little guy. It's a good engine.
That's an important thing, too, is, like, what may work for somebody doing a trains video or, like, doing, like, a Bachman video may not work for, a Wooden Railway or, like, a Tommy video.
Well, that's the thing. And we could go into this more another day, because it could be a whole other topic. But I do think that the big draw for me of Wooden Railway videos is that it's very freeing, because there's all this technical stuff that you kind of have to obsess over when you're doing like trains videos or model videos, like with, like HO or something. That there's this universal understanding with Wooden Railway stuff, is that you just, if an engine is smiling during a dramatic scene, it's like, yeah, that's just, from context clues, from dialogue, like how they should be, the expression they should be making. It's the same thing as watching the show and knowing nobody is sitting there saying, why isn't Thomas's mouth moving? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, we all know what's going on. Like, it gets the point across.
And that's something, it's so weird. So, as a kid, I thought, little kid, by the way, I thought Thomas was real. I thought they used real engines. Thomas was a real person, like, real functioning person. I never put two and two together that the mouths did not move.
Right.
I didn't put together that the figures were not real people. I'm like,
yeah, well, because they just represented them, and that was just kind of, as a kid, you don't really think that deeply.
That's true. It's
kind of like, isn't real.
It's kind of like
guys.
I knew that was going to happen eventually, but
he had to break it live though. Thanks.
It's kind of like Tugs and Theodore Tugboat, like those shows. I mean, there was like 1 or 2 episodes of Theodore where there were human figures, but
which is really kind of cursed when you think about it.
It is. It's like, but in Tugs there were never like people in like on visible, right. And that kind of kept the illusion going.
Yeah, because like if they had shown them, then they would be like obviously figures, and it would kind of distract. It's probably the same reason that like they didn't have any extra. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Just the fact that like as a kid, I didn't suspect anything about the show not being real. I genuinely thought like, and I mean up until a certain age, I feel like maybe when I was 6 or 7, and I was in elementary school, I was in like a period of doubt where I was like, oh, well, like the mouths don't move because the engines are actors.
It's like Santa. It's like figuring out Santa.
Yeah, no, that was like it for me. I honestly don't remember when I found out that Santa wasn't real, which is a much more loaded revelation than Thomas.
Santa's not real.
Okay, actually, we might want to roll that back a bit because there might be viewers that still believe. So
don't joke about Santa not being real, guys.
Yeah, no, guys.
I know he's real.
I'm not going to say Santa is or is not real, but if a train pulls up on your street in the middle of the night of Christmas Eve, I would not get on. Don't talk to strangers.
Yeah, no, that's a little weird, especially if they're like CGI Tom Hanks. I probably wouldn't recommend
Right.
All of them. Yeah. Right. God, Polar Express. Polar Express has got to be. It's got to be a minor inspiration too. Like I grew up with that. Anything train related as a kid was so entrancing to me.
Me too, man. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
That was the best.
What do you guys have for inspirations that are not necessarily like Train or Thomas related?
Oh,
like what's an inspiration? I have a lot of them.
Family is a big part of it. My cousin,
Family Guy.
My cousin that I said earlier that had Mike as a kid, like he was always big on like filmmaking and stuff when he was younger, and of course I followed suit, and I loved doing stuff with the Thomas trains, and he, like I said, he had a bunch of wooden railway stuff, and his family had an old like VHS recorder, and we would film like Thomas trains and stuff like that, and we would make stories for them. Most of mine were just really simple, or I remember one that I did that I completely ripped off Knuckles, the guy that made Railways of Sodor, the one where like
Spark Shot,
Spark Shot, yes, thank you. I ripped off his episode where a famous engine comes to Sodor and then bursts the safety valve and then gets brought down to Earth.
Dude, that was so cool. Wasn't the guy's name like Reginald?
Archibald,
like
the goat.
Archibald, that's right. I love that video.
And my cousins also had a bunch of Brio engines. They had Brio Flying Scotsman, Brio Mallard, like all the good stuff. And
whoa, that's great.
And they had the Brio Canadian Pacific, so that's what I used. I don't ask me. There was no like rhyme or reason. I just had to use him. And I just basically ripped off Spark Shot's episode of that. And
inspiration is ripping off. Like that's
it is, especially as a kid. I mean, me and my like sister. I mean, my sister is probably the biggest influence on me in any of this artistic stuff. I mean, that, and my parents were very supportive. My mom bought me all, like, any art supplies I ever wanted for anything. She was extremely encouraging of the arts. So that helped tremendously. But, like, my sister was my greatest kind of writing partner, because her and I would role play everything. Like, we would play with the Thomas characters, Cars characters, like from Disney Pixar Cars, like Batman characters, which we still do role plays with them. And it's like, I mean, a lot of my voices for the characters, you know, and all the kind of, my Gordon, my Henry, my James, that I perfected all of those playing with her, and it's like, there was a, like when I first started Gordon, doing his voice, he sounded more like this. He was just kind of this Squidwardy thing. And over time, he evolved into this. And that took a lot of practice over many, many years of just, like, us, like, having fun and playing with the characters and just creating these wacky stories. Eventually, I got a feel for what I wanted them to sound like. And also, that's how I got really good at improv. So, like, I can really, like, create a story quickly and roll with it. And just, like, the momentum of creating a story comes very naturally to me. But that's because her and I played for literally, like, well over a decade. And, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing, that you were talking about, Henry.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, when me and my cousin, we did those videos when we were younger, and then right around the time, right before I started my YouTube channel, like, we pulled up some old, like, because we would write, like, Thomas stories, and they were just on blank pieces of paper, and we would tape or staple them together and make it like a book. And then we realized, and then we just kind of had the idea, we were older, we were, like, more edgier, and we thought, what if I kind of talked about this in, like, my Percy's Ever Present Past with Percy number 6, where we did more, like, adult themed videos, where not like raunchy stuff, but, just funny, like, little gags of, like, Thomas picking up a escaped prisoner as a hitchhiker, and he doesn't realize it, and he helps him escape the island, or Gordon using steroids in his coal to break the express record, and
that's actually awesome.
It's a whole scandal. And then I just realized after a bit, I was like, you know what, I want to write, like, actual legit stories again. And then I started, like, filming them on an old, like, DVD recorder, and then this was 2013, so I kind of got interested in Thomas again a little bit, and I saw that they re-released The Flying Scotsman, which was something I always wanted as a kid. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get this, and then it just kind of, like, unfolded from there, and I decided to actually make a YouTube channel.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, like, how it kind of bleeds into, like, the start of your YouTube channel. Like, for me, I mean, my sister and I made a lot of videos on, like, the camcorder that we never uploaded but kind of intended to, and it was years before I actually got a channel and could upload what I wanted to. So I technically made maybe, like, I want to say 5 or maybe 10 Thomas videos before I joined the Wooden Railway community, before I even knew what the Wooden Railway community was. I didn't know there was this whole, like, group of people on YouTube that did just Wooden Railway.
Right.
I've been seeing, like, I saw Leo Kim Video back in 2006. I saw, like, Scarlowy 123, Sodor Dark Times, like, all that stuff, like, all the model and train stuff I saw. But the Wooden Railway stuff was more buried. It was harder to find. So I didn't find out about it until, like, 2015. And I didn't join until 2016. But before that point, I made a lot of kind of proto-Thomas videos that were just kind of off the cuff, not really, like, written down. The first time I actually wrote scripts and was serious about it was 2016, when I made my series that most people watching this are probably familiar with. Because all my other stuff is a lot more kind of buried in my lore. But, it's interesting seeing that transitionary period where it's not really just playtime anymore. You are actually, like, telling a coherent story, but it's also not serious yet.
Right.
Like, that's kind of how most channels start, is, like, playtime turns into a film for the first time. And some people, like, it's a lot more obvious than others. Like, you look at, like, you look at Thomas Wooden Railway's channel, right? Like, you can see his playtime turn into slowly, like, an actual well-produced, like, kind of film process,
Yeah.
Yep.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is.
He is a good guy.
Yep. I'm proud of him.
There's a big goof in most of his videos though, where he uses his hands, and that's kind of weird.
Yeah, you can see the hands in the shot. It's like his biggest inspiration was the story of the Flying Kipper. So
I get it.
Well, there you go. Actually, that is kind of like a good, like, specific question though. Is like, what like parts of the show inspire you guys the most? Like, what episodes really like strike you as being inspirational?
Grandpuff.
Ooh, that is a very good one. It's a lot of the ones like season 3 always comes to mind.
Yeah,
it's because
season
of shots
3. Yeah, season
like,
2 and 3 for sure.
Like the really big wide shots where you see like the side of an engine in silhouette.
Oh yeah,
like those are very
like Oliver and Donald and Douglas. Sorry, Oliver, Douglas, and Toad, and like Oliver and Duck passing by each other in that.
And then you have David Midden doing the thing with his arms.
Yep, I remember that happening in the episode too.
Yeah,
like he slowly rose up. I was so scared as a child. I thought, well, who is this man?
It's God.
My mom came up. Yeah, that's what my mom said. She came up. She said, "That's God," and I said, "What?"
Your mom is crazy.
I know that now, but
I remember
I couldn't at the time. I didn't know.
In terms of like inspirations that aren't Thomas related, I feel like a lot of like cartoons as well were very inspirational for me.
Sonic.
In terms of like, well, I don't know about Sonic inspiring. Maybe, I don't know. A lot of like old Looney Tunes, like the way they would draw backgrounds in that, and like the way the sort of humor was timed.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of the voices too. Like that's always been one of my bigger inspirations. Is like how to do
like
cartoony voices.
Honestly, if there's something that inspired my humor, I think Futurama.
Yeah. Futurama's really funny. Futurama's funny.
It's fantastic, but it really is. I think if I'm gonna point to one thing, where like I kind of learned how to balance comedy with drama and like actual like genuine storytelling, because that show does take itself seriously. It has a lot of jokes. It is a comedy, but like the heartfelt moments are not undercut at all. Like they matter. And I think my ratio is different. Like I have a lot more drama than I do comedy, unlike Futurama, but that show does a really good job of balancing the two and not undercutting one with the other, and I just love it so much.
Yeah, no, Futurama is such a. Now that you say it, that makes so much. Like I actually agree. I'm a very big Futurama fan.
Mm-hmm.
I agree too. Futurama. Yeah. I've always liked it better than The Simpsons for that reason.
Like I liked the Simpsons movie, and I liked it.
I loved the Simpsons movie. I grew up with that, man.
Yeah, like it was great, but like Futurama, I was able to get into a little bit more. You know, just it was more. I don't know. It was a little bit more unique and fantastical.
I agree.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, the more different a piece of content is, I feel like the more likely it is to inspire greatly. And you know, some of the most inspirational stuff in the Thomas community was definitely the stuff that really went for it and was different. And I try to make my stuff different too. And it's interesting. Like, you end up making stuff that reflects you, whether you try or not. It's like a person's art is kind of the embodiment of them, and I think it says so much about you, like what you grew up with and what you internalized, and because you know we've seen a lot of the same stuff. Like most of what we've all brought up today is like we're all chiming in like, yeah, I saw that, and we all took different things away, you know, and I think that's really interesting.
That's the thing. There's some people, like especially younger, like Thomas users, that are making stories or videos heavily inspired from the hit era, you know,
right?
And like X Lee HS, I watch his videos from time to time, and his series is hit era inspired, like heavily, you know,
right?
And they're good stories. I enjoy them, and I mean, every now and then, actually no, I can't even say that. I mean, some certain like season 8 episodes, like Thomas to the Rescue or Squeak, Rattle and Roll, like those videos are nostalgic for me, or those episodes are. But I can't really say I'd go in and watch like hit era over classic series, because I grew up with the classic series. But there's people that grew up with the hit era, and that was their introduction to Thomas, and that's what they are most attached to. You know, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, well, no, it's really interesting. It creates a lot of diversity of opinion and content because, it's like, I mean, hell, there's going to be a day where there is a lot of people, some people I'm sure are already thinking about it or starting to do it, but there's going to be a day where there's a lot of All Engines Go content out there. Mm-hmm. And it's like, obviously I don't like where the show has gone. I miss how it was. But like, people are creative. People are artistic by nature. Like, they're going to make some really beautiful things from something that maybe even doesn't have all that much thought put into it, but that doesn't stop you from pulling something beautiful out of it. I mean, back to like the 150 characters in 60 seconds video, that was nothing. Like, that was just a bunch of pictures. That was a slideshow of a bunch of trains with faces, and it got our imaginations going.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you can get inspired by that, then a fleshed out show that's like kind of more of a kiddie version of Thomas, of course you can get ideas from that. So sooner or later, I mean, we're going to see, I mean, the nature of content will evolve. But the other thing is, and this is what is exciting, is as the younger people in the fandom start to shift forward to the new series and then the CGI series and finally All Engines Go, the older people will begin to get wealth and experience and start making even more impressive incarnations of the classic series. And then you start to see stuff like Project Tiger Moth. You get to see stuff like really detailed replicas where I remember just a few years ago, it was impressive if there was like a single replica of a character that actually fooled you. Now there are genuinely like at least 6 sets of the main 11 out there. Like, it's crazy. Imagine what it's going to be like in 10, 15 years where a few people who are really into Thomas have become dentists or airline pilots, and now they can, like, do a huge series. Like, it's an exciting time to be a Thomas fan.
A lot of times, that's the thing, different things limit you as you get the advantage on one thing, but, you get limited on other. When I was a kid, I had time in the world. I just didn't have the money to get all the stuff that I'd need for, or just the talent or just the skill to do certain things that I do now. And now it's kind of I have a lot of those things. I think I can confidently say I have just about every. I mean, there's a few here and there that I would like to get eventually, but I have just about every wooden railway item I ever wanted. And
that's really cool, honestly.
And that's the thing. Like 14, like me as a kid would be like, if he looked into the future, he'd be like, "Holy cow!" But and now the thing that's limiting me is time, like motivation. I got responsibilities.
It's so true.
I got responsibilities now. I'm getting married in October. We're gonna start a family.
Dude,
and
that is wild.
Yeah,
and you're all invited. Everyone in the audience.
Yep.
Oh no! What have you done? There's not enough hors d'oeuvres, Ronnie.
Are we gonna film a one chuff at a time in the groom's room?
I'm probably.
Sorry,
well, me and you, Ronnie, are gonna be busy doing other stuff because you're a groomsman, and then Lemmy's gonna be off with the other guys.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Lemmy can. All by himself, but
that's okay.
Yeah, I'll do a single I'll do a single chuff, just one chuff.
Exactly, right. One chuff at a time.
So we're just about at an hour, right?
I'm at 17 minutes on mine.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys knew this. Well, no, you didn't know this unless we told you, but we had to pause for a second, then come back. So our timestamps are different now.
Me and Ronnie both had a bathroom break. Not Henry because of his incredible bladder.
I went to the bathroom.
Undefeated.
I went to the bathroom before we started recording, so that was good.
Smart.
But anyway, I think we're gonna call it here. I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode of this podcast. And if you guys, like I said at the beginning of the episode, we have a lot of topics that we have ideas for making episodes of. But if you guys have a topic you want to, suggestions, leave a comment down below or message us on YouTube DMs. Oh wait, never mind. Those got taken away. Those got taken away a long time ago.
Yeah, you're a little behind the curve on that.
I'm sure this video will still have comments because the thumbnail is not overtly Thomas, and the
we
name
swear,
is not overtly Thomas.
And not me, but you guys have sweared a little bit, so I appreciate that. Not a whole lot.
The Chuff in the title is about pot.
No, it's not.
Way,
Stop. No,
yes,
shut up.
One Chuff.
Anyway,
no, for
I
you
hope
too,
you guys enjoyed this first episode, like I said, and if you have any ideas you have for videos, music, any content in general, go for it. Just remember to keep it at one Chuff at a time. Thank you for watching.
Yep. See you in the next one.
Goodbye.